Alright guys, here's your review of the Misfit Boxing 22 that just happened in Manchester, England. Darren Till viciously knocks out Luke Rockhold in the third round. Each round, when the fight started, Luke Rockhold looked pretty good. He's just jabbing Darren Till, trying not to throw his own left hand too many times because I think he knew he could get countered. So he's just throwing his jab and throwing to the body and not really going to the head with his left hand. But the first round's going really well. The announcement team or the announcers during the broadcast mentioned that Luke Rockhold was 11-1 underdog. So Till was 11-1 favorite going into this fight. And I was just like, dude, that's absolutely insane. I know Luke Rockhold is 40 years old. I know he's been knocked out a number of times, but the amount of favoritism that was happening for Darren Till was a little bit crazy. But hey, he obviously got the job done. At the end of the first round, he drops Luke Rockhold pretty badly. He gets saved by the bell, obviously. Into the second round, Luke Rockhold's doing okay, but he's still, in position to get hurt, just like he has been in his last few fights. He gets decked in the second round again. Almost goes down. He just narrowly misses the canvas with his knee and with his hand. Third round, vicious KO. Darren Till gets it done. Now, what is next for Darren Till? Like, he's mentioned in the past when he first left the UFC that he was considering going back to the UFC, just wanted to take a break. Dana White allowed him to leave the UFC. They gave him his release, and now he's been doing this Misfits boxing thing. And it's been working out for him. He's obviously a huge star in the UK, and people came out to see him fight. There was a ton of people in the crowd in the AO Arena, I believe it's called, in Manchester. So he's a big star for Misfits, and I don't know necessarily if he should plan to come back to the UFC. I'm sure a big part of him wants to do so, but Darren Till's biggest weakness in the UFC was his ground game. Like, he didn't really have it, and he would be fighting at 185, and right now who's the champion at 185 comes at Chimaev, so he doesn't want that smoke. And then everybody at 185 they're all killers, right? Like, it's murderer's row at 185, and to throw Darren Till in there, I just don't see the path for him to do something unless he just wants to make a paycheck, which I'm sure he's making good money with Misfits. I don't see a future for him in the UFC anymore. So just keep racking up them wins. He could be the BKFC version or the Misfits version of, Mike Perry at BKFC. So Mike Perry was obviously just a regular journeyman fighter when it came to his career in the UFC. Went to BKFC. Now he's like the biggest name in that company, and he's killing it. So this is basically the same trajectory that I see for Darren Till in Misfits. So in terms of Luke Rockhold, it's tough, man. I don't know why he's still fighting. I understand, like, fighters will always have that urge to get in there and to compete. So we just don't want to keep seeing him get knocked out. If he wants to keep fighting, maybe fight some other people his age, right? He shouldn't be fighting. Darren Till's 32 years old. I know his name has been around for years, but he started his MMA career when he was really young. And that's why he's still in his early 30s and competing at this rate. So Luke, I hope that was his last fight. I don't want to see him get any more brain damage, but if he does fight again, fight somebody your age, or somebody that's a little bit not as young as Darren Till. So that was the main event. Co-main event, we got Tony Ferguson versus Salt Poppy. Tony, his hands looked a little bit slow. Like, there wasn't a lot of power in his shots, but he was landing and he was moving forward with his Tony Ferguson pressure that he's known to have, and he was doing his thing. Salt Poppy obviously is not a professional, at least not to the stage that Tony Ferguson is. Yes, Tony Ferguson is 41 years old, but he has a wealth of experience when it comes to combat sports. So when he jumped into the boxing ring, yes, he's never boxed before, but this is something that is second nature. Like, he strikes in the UFC, or used to strike in the UFC. So when I was watching him doing his thing, I was like, okay, this is not bad. And honestly, they did him a favor to give him somebody like Salt Poppy and not an actual pro boxer or a former MMA fighter that actually had hands, because when they did that and they gave him I believe it's the interim belt, I was kind of like, I don't know, this is kind of odd, like, I don't really, I see what they're doing. They want to give him some name value. They want to give him a belt. They want to make sure that he's a champion in the organization and he can see a future for himself, because Tony Ferguson's a big name. If you saw the number of people that showed up for him, that were rooting for him, that were cheering Tony the whole time when he was in there, which is a little bit surprising. I was like, wow, you still got a lot of people rooting for him. And Tony is stubborn, man. He does not want to retire. He wants to keep competing. I can see him boxing and fighting into his later 40s. At least by 45, in the next 3-4 years, he's still going to keep competing. You hear what he says in his interviews. He has no plans on retiring anytime soon. So good for him. He got his win. I'm just more so afraid of who he's going to fight next. Obviously, his last 8 fights in the UFC, he lost in many different ways, through strikes, through submissions, and so on and so forth. So Those are all UFC caliber fighters that he fought. And going into his next fight, I'm sure the Misfits is going to give him somebody that is actually decent, somebody that's actually good. So I don't know. I just don't want to see him get knocked out again. So we'll see where this goes. But I think, yeah, Tony is going to set himself up for more damage in the future, which is unfortunate. The fight before that one, we had Dillon Danis doing his thing. You know, they had their first MMA fight in Misfits boxing, but they won MMA rules because Dillon Danis is a specialist when it comes to jiu-jitsu, and they needed to make it a little bit more fair for him to win. So they put him against a striker, and then they made sure the striker, so it was a striker versus grappler match. And so Dillon Danis gets a submission very early in the first round, and he's, you know, flipping the bird, doing his own dance, saying, I understand why the organization KSI wants him in the business, because he's a loudmouth, he's, you know, popular on Twitter, he's known for saying a lot of crazy stuff, and having a name like him in this organization is good, because then he can actually, you know, continue to make headlines in the organization. And so you might be fighting Tony Ferguson next, might be fighting somebody else next. I don't know. I'm not sure who they're gonna set him up with, but I don't know. I'm just not the biggest Dillon Danis fan, to be honest with you. I don't really like talking about it. I'm not a big fan, and I just find him super annoying. Good for him that he got a win and he got a belt, but at the end of the day, yeah, I'm not a big fan of Dillon Danis. So I'm happy that this event happened on a day when there was no UFC. I'm sure most of you are watching this being like, yo, what are we going to watch today? There's no violence. There's nothing on the menu. We got to watch something. So I guess we're going to watch this Misfits boxing thing. And it's actually the first time I've gone through main card of this. I've heard of them before. I checked them out for the first time today. I'm sure most of you saw it for the first time. And what did you think? What did you think about the event, the production, the commentary, and so on and so forth? The fights were okay. The rest of the fights before the Dillon Danis fight, there were a lot of amateurs fighting, to be honest with you. But yeah, please let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. This is Asher, and I'll see you in the next video.